Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hudson Institute. Apologies, we're getting started a little later than intended here. Thank you for bearing with us. Those of us in the room, of course, have a few drinks and snacks to pass the time, but very, very grateful for the patience of those of you watching online, just due to the congressional schedule. That was unavoidable. My name's Nate Sibley, and I'm a fellow here at Hudson. I direct the Kleptocracy Initiative, which is a program about how authoritarian corruption is reshaping global politics and security, and what the US can do to push back against that. And this evening, it's great that we're able to discuss a new development which will very much enable US law enforcement to do just that. It is the Foreign Extortion Prevention Act, which criminalizes demands for bribes by foreign officials. Transparency International says it's the most consequential new US anti-bribery law since the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act in the 1970s. Experts have said, in fact, that it not only complements but completes the FCPA in many respects. We can get into that a bit later. It was sailed through Congress, reflecting how popular and important this issue is, in a bipartisan, bicameral way. So big thanks to the leadership of the co-sponsors, Senators Whitehouse and Tillis. Senator Whitehouse is a good friend of Hudson. If you watch any previous Kleptocracy Initiative events, he often makes an appearance, a great champion of these things. And then in the House, Representatives Sheila Jackson-Lee and, last but not least, Representative Joe Wilson, who we are absolutely delighted and honored to be able to join us here this evening at Hudson. Thank you so much for joining us. Congressman Wilson has represented the 2nd District of South Carolina in the US Congress since 2001. He started out as a lawyer, but has a long track record of distinguished public service, both in the South Carolina State House, State Senate, I should say, and in the US military reserves. In Congress, he sits on the House Armed Services Committee, House Foreign Affairs Committee, House Committee on Education and the Workforce, and perhaps most relevant this evening, he's also the chairman of the bipartisan Helsinki Commission, from which so much, if you follow these issues, so much of the good work on corruption and kleptocracy that's been done by the Congress in recent years has emanated. So congratulations on the passage of your law, the Foreign Extortion Prevention Act, which we'll refer to as FEPA, I guess, for use of to speed things up, seeing as we're all running a little late. And maybe you'd like to kick us off just with some general remarks about those of who may have stumbled in here, don't know what FEPA is. What does the law do, and why is it so important?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here, and really congratulations to the Kleptocracy Initiative and the Hudson Institute. And it's so important to have organizations such as this that give the background so we can have good people who actually then can work with other members of Congress. I appreciate that Stephanie Pendarvis, Omar Hosni is here. I'm very grateful for their leadership, Paul Massaro, and it's a combination for me of the staff and then working with the Helsinki Commission, Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe. I'm also grateful again. It takes a team, and you do it. And I appreciate Transparency International of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I mean, it just goes on. And then it is bipartisan. My relationship with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, she and I traveled together as co-chairs of the Afghan caucus to see the remarkable country efforts to really develop that country. And she taught me a lesson, and I was with her about 5 minutes ago. And I said, hey, I've just got back from Seoul, Korea last week. And I quoted her often and often, and this applies to everything we're doing. And that is, good news has no feet and bad news has wings. And so when we arm wrestle, it'll be reported. When we work together, no news. Again, I'm just so grateful to be here. And then it was ironic coming in to run into an individual from Morocco. I've been there. I'm the co-chair of the Morocco caucus. And then I'm really grateful with our colleague from the Russian Federation. I somewhat surprised him. I gave him my business card in Russian. And then it's ironic, it relates to our guest here from Pakistan with the rotary pen. The reason I had my cards in Russian is that I have Chelyabinsk is a sister city of Columbia, South Carolina. We reached out. I visited Novosibirsk in Siberia one time, and a sign in English welcomed us to the city. Welcome to Novosibirsk, the Chicago of Siberia. I had an intern in my office in the state Senate who was from St. Petersburg, and so I misread the whole thing. And I stayed with his family, his dad was a doctor in the Soviet Navy. But, and I visited Moscow a number of times, and I thought that, that Russia would be a very modern country, and one way to help was our Pakistani friend here has a rotary pin on. The reason I have my cards in Russian, ironically, was because I wanted to urge people in Russia to form Rotary clubs where they could be in a civic club, didn't have to be Rotary alone. And I claim no credit, but when I was an election observer, June 10, 1990, in Bulgaria, I took information on how to start Rotary clubs and a number of different service clubs, not just Rotary, and with Professor Stefan Stoyanov, who was then elected to the National Assembly. When I handed him information about how to start a Rotary club, he whispered so the Secret Service couldn't hear. He said, is this a political organization? I said, no, it's not. And I give him all the credit. Now, and then when he started Rotary, it actually, again, how people can work together, it was discovered that the original Sofia Rotary Club had their club records taken 20 miles out of town and buried with the hope one day Rotary would come back. And so, and to me, that's, again, what Hudson Institute's doing, Transparency International, we one-on-one, working with people and doing our best to indeed secure development of jobs created around the world.
Thank you so much. I want to zoom out just before we get into sort of what FEPA does and doesn't do. You started talking there, I think, and what you were alluding to was something that I've heard in speeches you talk about before, which is the distinction between countries that have a rule of law and other countries that have rule of the gun. And I think it's relevant because at the start of maybe President Biden's tenure, he was very keen to divide the world into democracies versus autocracies. And I think and I've heard Senator Whitehouse use a term similar to what you were saying as well. What I think many people in the Congress felt that was maybe too heavy-handed. What's the difference between a world where we divide things up by democracies and autocracies versus rule by law and rule of the gun?
Well, to me, we're in a war now that we did not choose. Terminology I use for the past couple of years is that we're in a competition. Mm-hmm. Well, it's gone beyond that. And I was using autocracy and authoritarian, and then I realized that very few people even understood what language I was using. And so then I got and hey, I was using authoritarian, you're going to be shocked, because that was the term that Vice President Harris used. And I thought, okay, let's have one term. Then it was remarkable to me that I'm now going to quote President Biden, and that is that he met with President Xi, and then 2 days later, he mentioned dictators in the world, and that hurt President Xi's feelings. And I thought, that's the right word. And so I try to use the term, and I need y'all's help to spread this in a positive way, and that is we're in a conflict. We need to recognize that we did not choose. This is not our fault. And that is that you have dictators with rule of gun who are invading now, not opposing, democracies with the rule of law. And so, and we can see another organization that I know you work with is American Enterprise Institute. They've had a remarkable presentation of the interconnection between and I differentiate the people. And so it's war criminal Putin with the Chinese Communist Party. My Iranian friend said, I said, what are we supposed to call you? It's the regime in Tehran. And so, and regime in Tehran, and then indeed with their associate member, the dictator in Pyongyang. And so as a junior member, but we've got, and there's also a consequence. There's been some positive. I mean, in my lifetime, I never imagined that Sweden and Finland would become part of NATO. And so hey, to see the solidarity of Western Europe come together, and the EU. I'm the co-chair and founder of the EU caucus, and I was with my Brendan Boyle, my Democrat colleague, and I said, hey, I saw in the paper, Brendan, did you see the EU is providing $3 billion of military equipment to Ukraine? And I said, did you know they have military equipment? And I didn't know that. And he said, no, I didn't know it either. And so in the meantime, of course, it's not military equipment, it's funding. Okay, and so And they're getting ready to come up with another $50 billion worth of military equipment. And so the inadvertent act of, I call him war criminal Putin, is to unify much of the world, not all. And then, but a danger we have that I didn't even know existed is that in our country we have isolationists who somehow perceive that the Atlantic Ocean is sufficient defense. And gosh, did you know that the Pacific is twice as wide? Somehow they forgot Pearl Harbor. But bottom line, that's where the Hudson Institute and all of you, Transparency International, U.S. Chamber, whoever you're with, it's important that we educate the American people in a positive way, and that I do not want to repeat or see, but sadly I'm seeing it, a repeat of September 1938, peace in our time. We've just, without being warmongers, hey, it's peace through strength, and that's what we need to be doing.
Do you see, this is FEPA creates a law enforcement mechanism.
It's terrific.
How does it fit in with those broader U.S. foreign policy and national security?
Hey, I want everybody to read all about it, because the more I read about it, the more important it is, okay? And that is that it's real world. Mm-hmm. A lot of legislation we pass and a lot of laws we pass are esoteric, but this is real world. These are people offering bribes, receiving bribes, and then it's jurisdiction within the United States, but with countries that we have an extradition treaty. Mm-hmm. And so we need to, and then when persons who are offering bribes visit other countries that have extradition treaty, we have jurisdiction to pick them up. And so, and it could be, when they bring the family to Orlando to go to Disney World, it'd be a most unfortunate interruption of their vacation. And but the number of countries that we have extradition treaties across Europe and around the world, this is so broad, but it addresses an issue that I've always been concerned about, and that is that totalitarian states, dictatorships, have, as a matter of policy, their matter of policy is bribe, and then how is it that the People's Republic of China has possibly more billionaires than the United States? That's impossible, right? No, it's bribes, corruption, and that they're proud of. But and that's state policy, and so this law, I think, is going to have a remarkable positive impact for American companies to be on even hand and to create jobs overseas, and then also it accelerates job creation in the United States. And the district I represent, I'm really grateful. I just met with representatives from Michelin, and I have the largest Michelin manufacturing facility in the world. It's in the district I represent. And then we want everybody to have a X5. BMW X5s are made in Greenville, South Carolina. Everyone should have one, okay? And
don't endorse specific cars or legislation, unfortunately.
Well, hey,
Hudson
I need to be even-handed.
You're free to say what it
Hey, I need to be even-handed. Now we produce Volvo too. So.
Oh, there you go.
And hey, that's okay. That's the ultimate bizarre. Okay, when you drive by the Volvo facility near Charleston, there are 3 flags out front. Of course, U.S., South Carolina, and Sweden, mm-hmm. except for one thing. The Volvo automotive division is owned by a Chinese billionaire. But anyway, it's called jobs, and we say thank you. No, how interrelated the world is, and it's so sad to me that we have people in our country who don't recognize how beneficial it can be. I have Bridgestone Tire, Japanese, in the district I represent. Continental Tire, Germany, right next door. GT Tire, Singapore, in the community. So over and over again, I'm just so hopeful that we can really establish peace through strength for stability around the world to benefit all countries.
And I think I'm so glad that you brought up, you've been talking all along about the competition we face, but particularly with the China issue.
Yes.
And part of the research we've been doing here at Hudson is how bribery, not only within China, but has allowed it to expand its Belt and Road Initiative and gain influence inside societies around the world, where it might not otherwise have been able to do. and US firms are unable to go in and compete fairly with them because they're state-owned companies, collude with local officials to shut them out of your tender processes and so on. Do you see this as part of the toolkit for pushing back against Chinese aggression and influence around the world?
This should have such an impact and so positive. Within the United States, extraterritorial jurisdiction, what a positive impact. And for people who want to be law-abiding, this is a protection for them. Mm-hmm. But also then it goes after countries with state enterprises, a polite term, but over and over again, that they can so unfairly, as state policy, as government, they're rewarded to be a billionaire by the number of bribes that they can achieve. And then I had the opportunity, because things are always as they appear. I was in Shanghai one time and went by and visited the Bao steel facility. And it was so impressive. In a room about this size, they have different displays of all the different companies that are working in tandem there. And I mentioned to our escort how impressive it was, so many different companies with Western names and in English. And the person with me said, hey, Joe, you need to know, all of these are state enterprises. There's not one different. This is a charade. A Potemkin village, and that they're not separate enterprises. And so the Western mind is just hard for us to conceive that bribery would be a means of business, an accepted and promoted means of business. And that's why, again, I was trying with promoting Rotary Club just one-on-one, and I worked very closely with AmChams. They're a lifesaver to promote without interfering in the country's own laws, but to give advice. And in fact, my hope, again, back with Russia, is that they could see the benefits of free market democracy. But sadly, my view is the mafia took over.
You brought up the American Chamber of Commerce again. They are a great organization. They're one with which those of us who work on anti-corruption and national security issues, we don't always agree, and we don't. Sometimes they have concerns that the things we push would add burdens to U.S. businesses. But this was one, it really marched through Congress quite quickly, didn't it? But also lots of external support. Could you talk a bit about?
You're underestimating. Y'all work hard. Okay, Kleptocracy worked hard. And then I want to give credit that working with Sheldon Whitehouse, bipartisan, with Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, again, I want y'all to look all this up, that this statute actually is the most extensive in 50 years. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's with the technologies we've had today, and what an incentive for law-abiding citizens to have an incentive to report bribes and to stop bribery. And I would much prefer that it be stopped. And you really need to read how extensive this is. I mean, the more I read about it, y'all didn't tell me everything. The more I read about it, the more it's real world. It's not an esoteric discussion of what might be. Mm-hmm. It's real world that can have truly such a mutually beneficial effect for American business and for Western businesses that are operating in a law of accountability and transparency, international transparency, and then you deal with a dictatorship, an authoritarian regime, and they obviously benefit from bribery, and so this should be so mutually beneficial for people around the world, and with apparently maybe even 120 countries have real issues with bribery as part of state policy, and countries that should know better. And so this would be a wonderful way for them to adopt or adapt to the law that's been passed that Hudson Institute has been so successful to promote.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions, because I know we're going towards drinky time, which everyone's been waiting for. This isn't this is a new law for the US. It's not a new idea. Some allies like the UK, France, Germany, they have prohibition of with extraterritorial jurisdiction, they have prohibited, foreign officials from trying to bribe their countries. But why does it matter when the US takes this up and leads on it?
Well, two things. I really appreciate the expertise of like the FBI. And then I also appreciate that it could have a incentive of trial lawyers who are very enterprising people, understatement, okay? And so this gives them an incentive to take action, and so they don't, hey, kleptocrats do not want to meet American trial lawyers. And everything I'm saying is an understatement. So anyway, so I see, because hey, y'all need to. This is real world. I knew it was important, but gosh, the more I've read about it and how far-reaching this is, to be mutually beneficial to the people in corrupt countries. This gives them an opportunity to identify people who are corrupt and ultimately to remove them from power, and empowers the people of. It's helpful to us, but gosh, it could be so helpful to countries that should be doing better. And then with the technologies we have today, anything and everything can be explained and understood, except in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
But it's a great point because lots of countries, they struggle with rule of law. They're not complete, far-gone dictatorships, but prosecuting cases against their own officials can be difficult. This allows them to almost use the US law enforcement system as a surrogate to work with US law enforcement and improve that. So it's a tremendous step forward for rule of law worldwide.
Hey, Hudson Institute, Transparency International, what an achievement. And of course, we want it to benefit our country, but I think it's going to benefit other countries more.
And just to finish off, beyond looking at corrupt officials themselves, there are those here in the West, unfortunately, and even in the United States, who help them launder that money through the global financial system. Yes. And they have their assets often parked here, right?
Right.
So it's one thing to go after the corrupt officials themselves, but you then have to go after the people who do all the professional work for them, who are complicit, the lawyers, the bankers who are crooked. Right. Most lawyers and bankers aren't crooked, but there are a few rotten apples, as we know. And then go after the assets that they stole from their own people, that they hid in Miami penthouses or New York yachts or whatever, whatever it may be. How important is it to go after those people as well?
It's again, that's how far-reaching it is. It's not just the bribers and bribees. It's people who facilitate by way of laundering funds. And that's just so critical. And we know it's so corrupting. Let's go back to other countries, how corrupting that is for countries. And so it'll be so beneficial to countries around the world that people who are laundering funds can be identified and hopefully removed from positions of influence, and they will be. And so I truly hope that everyone here looks into the details of what I'm talking about, because it's so far-reaching. It's not just a situation that's important for the United States. It's so far-reaching for undeveloped countries that are being abused by the elites that, as we know, some more equal than others.
Congressman, I want to thank you so much for your time this evening, especially after a long day legislating. It's great to hear that you were stuck on the floor legislating when many Americans, what do they do up there all day? Well, you were stuck up there legislating. That's great.
Hey, I'm just humbled to be serving, and I want to invite, you're welcome to come by our office, 1436 Longworth House office building, and all you have to do is, the code is easy. Joe said, come by. And they'll take you right. I've got a window overlooking U.S. Capitol, and I'm just really grateful to have picture opportunities. And then this past month has just been remarkable for me to go to Yerevan, Armenia, and see what an extraordinary country that they are. And then I had the opportunity to visit Oxford and London with the Marshall Scholars Program. And then last week, the Foreign Ministry of Korea was in Seoul and visiting Seoul and Incheon and Camp Humphreys to see what a contrast, okay? I'm the only member of Congress still serving who's been to Pyongyang, so I've seen that. But incredibly, the opportunities for the people in Korea, that how impressive. The per capita income in Korea in 1960 was $1,000. The consequence of the Korean War was total destruction. And now the per capita income in South Korea is $44,000. And then the per capita income in North Korea is $976. And so if you ever want to sit, we thought East and West Berlin was pretty instructive. But GDR and the German Republic. But no, the Korean Peninsula should be such a message of what can be done if people are given the right to govern themselves. And with my Pakistani friend here, I still have hopes for Pakistan and for the Russian people too. And a final point, I'm really grateful. My father served in India and China during World War II, so that gave me a real positive feeling about the people of India and how hardworking, and a real empathy for the people of China. And I was so grateful to see, when I came in, the flag of Taiwan. And I'm just, to me, so hopeful that in a bipartisan manner that we can continue to work to maintain the independence of Ukraine, the independence of Israel, the independence of Taiwan. And so it's just a meaningful experience for me to be here. And my father served in Xi'an, Chengdu, and Xi'an, and Kunming, China. And it was so sad. I'm not name dropping, but I visited with President Jiang Zemin one time, 20 years ago, and I was introduced as a member of Congress, and he yawned. And so then somebody said, Joe's the son of a flying tiger. He threw his arms up in the air and announced that the American military is revered in China. And at that time, I was invited to the different 14th Air Force Flying Tiger museums across the country. I have now been disinvited.
That's the way the world's gone, I'm afraid. But thank you so much for your time this evening, for your insights, and for your leadership in Congress.
Well, I'm honored to be serving.
It's fantastic that you are, because you're pushing through things like FEPA, which are going to make the world a better place, and a better place for American leadership.
Well, thank you. Hey, thank you all for making a difference. It's American public and then brave people from countries that should be doing better. Pakistan. Okay, pardon me.
And thank you all so much for, again, for your patience at the start and for joining us this evening. Special thanks to those of you joining us online as well. For those of you who are here, there are still some drinks and snacks at the back, and it'd be a good chance for you all to meet each other. Many people here will be either helped get FEPA passed, or will be working with FEPA in their capacity as lawyers or law enforcement officials or whatever it is. So everyone has a sort of interest in it here, I think. So hopefully we can all get to know each other. And thank you again, Congressman.
Okay, thank you. Best wishes. Thank you. Thank you.